What if I told you there's a strategy so powerful that it could make them regret losing you, and no one, absolutely no one, sees it coming? It's not about playing games. It's not about waiting around hoping they'll miss you. And it's definitely not about getting revenge. It's about something much deeper. Something that could completely change the way you see yourself and how others see you. It's a shift in mindset, in perspective, and in control. A level of emotional power that most people never tap into. And it all starts with something ancient, something profound, something that can transform your entire approach to life. Stoicism. I know what you're probably thinking. Stoicism? Isn't that just a bunch of old philosophy stuff that doesn't really apply to my life today? But stick with me here for a moment. Because what if I told you that Stoicism isn't just for ancient philosophers, but for real people like you and me, navigating heartbreak, personal growth, and ultimately the power to reclaim your own life? Let's be honest, after a breakup, it feels like the world is caving in. The person you trusted, the one who was supposed to stand by you, is suddenly gone. And what's left? The empty space. The unanswered questions, the lingering hope that maybe, just maybe, they'll realize their mistake. You spend days, weeks, maybe even months waiting for that call or that message, hoping for some sign that they miss you too, that they regret it. But let me ask you this. What if that hope is actually keeping you stuck? What if the real power you're seeking isn't in waiting for them to come back, but in learning to move on so completely that they can't help but regret walking away? What if the secret is in becoming someone who no longer needs their validation? Someone who is so emotionally free that the very thought of them doesn't control your life anymore? I want to take you on a journey, a transformation, that's deeper than anything you've ever tried before. A journey that will make you someone they can never have again. Not because you shut them out in anger, but because you found something much more powerful. Indifference. You're probably wondering, indifference? Isn't that just about ignoring them, right? Well, it's a little more complicated than that. It's not about playing cold or detached. It's about something far more profound. It's about a mental shift that leaves them wondering, what happened to them? Why aren't they waiting around anymore? Why don't they need me anymore? Indifference isn't just the absence of care. It's the complete freedom from needing someone else's approval. It's like standing on a mountaintop, looking out over a vast landscape, knowing that you're not attached to any one thing below you. You're free. And once you achieve that level of freedom, that's when people start to take notice. They start to question their decisions. They start to wonder if they made a mistake. But the best part? You won't even care anymore. You'll be so focused on your own growth, on mastering yourself, that the past will be nothing more than a faint memory. You'll have become someone who is untouchable. But here's where most people go wrong. They think that if they ignore their ex or go silent, that's enough. They think, I'll show them. I'll make them see what they're missing. And maybe you've tried that. Maybe you've done the no contact thing, deleted their number, stopped checking their social media. You tell yourself, this is it. This is how I move on. But if you're still waiting for them to reach out, still hoping they'll realize what they lost, then you're still emotionally invested. You're still attached. And attachment, that's the real enemy. See, the truth is, the only way to really get them to regret losing you isn't by waiting around for them to come back. It's by completely letting go. By becoming so emotionally independent, so focused on your own growth, that when they do look back, they'll see someone who's no longer available to them in any way, emotionally, mentally, or even physically. And they'll regret losing you, not because you disappeared, but because you became someone they could never have again. Now let me tell you a little bit about what that looks like. Imagine for a moment, you're the person they thought they knew. someone who is constantly checking their phone, hoping for a message, wishing for a sign. But then one day, something changes. You stop waiting. You stop hoping. You start focusing on you, on your health, your career, your mindset. And you notice something. The world doesn't end. In fact, you start to feel stronger. You start to feel better, more confident, more alive. And as time passes, you start realizing you've transformed. You're not the same person anymore. You've built a new life for yourself, one that doesn't rely on anyone else's approval. It's here, in this space of transformation, that you begin to truly understand the power of indifference. Because when you don't need someone else's validation, you don't have to prove anything. Your actions speak for themselves. Your growth, your energy, your success, that's what makes them regret losing you. Not because you tried to make them jealous or played games, but because you've become so focused on your own journey that the past no longer holds any weight. That's the secret. That's the strategy that no one tells you about. It's not about making them regret losing you through manipulation or revenge. It's about making them regret losing you because you've become someone they can't touch. Someone so emotionally independent, so strong, so free, that they can't help but wonder if they made the biggest mistake of their life. So I want you to think about that for a moment. What would it feel like to be completely free of their influence? To be so strong that their departure doesn't affect you anymore? What would it look like for you to start living a life where you're the one in control, where you've mastered your emotions, and where you no longer need anyone else to define your worth? That's what we're going to dive into today. We're going to talk about the steps you can take to make that shift. Steps rooted in Stoic philosophy that have been used for centuries to turn pain into power. So, if you're ready to stop waiting, ready to take control, and ready to become someone who is truly untouchable, then let's begin. Because the moment you start applying this secret strategy, everything will change. Imagine for a second that you're in the middle of a tough breakup. You're sitting there, thinking about everything that went wrong, wondering what you could have done differently, and feeling like you've lost a part of yourself. It feels like the world has shifted beneath your feet, and your mind keeps circling back to that one question. Why did this happen? And almost as an afterthought, you begin to think, what if they regret it? What if they realize what they lost and come back to me? You hold on to that hope day after day, letting it carry you through the heartbreak. But deep down, you know this isn't the answer. The truth is, waiting for them to realize their mistake, to come back to you, is one of the most disempowering things you can do. It keeps you stuck in a place of emotional limbo, where you're constantly chasing a future that may never come. But what if I told you that the key to moving forward, to truly letting go of the past, and to making them regret losing you, is not in waiting for them at all? What if the secret wasn't in hoping they'd come back, but in not caring at all? In becoming someone so emotionally detached, so self-sufficient, so indifferent that when they look back, they won't find the person they once knew. They'll find someone completely unrecognizable. Someone who's not just moved on, but is thriving in a way they could never have imagined. That's the power of indifference. Now I know what you might be thinking. Indifference? Isn't that just about ignoring them? Isn't it the same as cutting them off, pretending they don't matter? And here's where the confusion happens. People often think indifference is about playing cold, about shutting someone out emotionally. But that's not it. True indifference is not about putting on an act or pretending you don't care. It's about genuinely not caring anymore. It's about reaching a point where their actions, their decisions, and their opinions no longer have any hold over your emotions. It's the freedom that comes from realizing you don't need anything from them to feel complete. You're not detached because you're angry or hurt. You're detached because you've outgrown them. because you've become so focused on yourself and your own growth that they no longer fit into your world. Think about it. Have you ever experienced that moment when you stopped chasing after something you wanted, whether it was a person, a job, or even an opportunity, and suddenly it felt like the pressure lifted? When you let go of the desperate need for something to happen, that's when everything changes. You stop being the one who's always reacting, always waiting for something outside yourself to fill the void. You start creating your own sense of fulfillment, your own sense of peace, and that's when others begin to notice. The energy shifts. Suddenly, you're no longer the one chasing them. They're the ones left wondering what happened to the person they used to know. It's the most powerful thing you can do, and here's why. People are wired to crave what they can't have. It's human nature. Think about it. When something is always available to you, it loses its value. But when it's suddenly out of reach, when it's unattainable, that's when your mind starts to fixate on it. That's when the regret begins. When you become indifferent, when you stop showing your hand, when you no longer need them to feel whole, you become that unattainable thing. You turn the tables, and they're left questioning whether they made the right choice. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're dating someone who's always been a little too emotionally available. Maybe they're constantly checking in, texting you all the time, trying to be there for you in every way. They're always reaching out, always trying to make you feel special, always giving, and you, in turn, start taking it for granted. It's not that you don't care about them, but you get so used to their attention, you start to take it for granted. Now imagine that one day, they stop. They don't reach out first anymore. They don't respond to your texts as quickly. They stop chasing after you, and suddenly, you're the one left wondering why they aren't paying attention to you the way they used to. It's a shift, right? You start questioning yourself, wondering if something's wrong. Or maybe, just maybe, you begin to realize that they're no longer emotionally invested in the way they once were. That's the power of indifference. When you stop being emotionally available to someone who used to have all your attention, they suddenly realize they've lost access to you. And when they realize they no longer have a hold on you, that's when regret starts to seep in. They'll wonder if they made a mistake. They'll wonder why they didn't appreciate you more when they had the chance. But here's the thing. By the time they realize it, you won't care anymore. You'll be so far beyond the need for their approval or validation that their regret won't even affect you. You'll have become someone they can't reach, someone who's moved on, someone who's living a life that's completely in their own control. And here's where it gets interesting. This level of emotional freedom doesn't just happen by chance. It's something you have to actively cultivate. You have to train your mind to stop relying on external validation, to stop needing someone else to make you feel complete. It's a mental shift that comes with embracing the idea that you are the source of your own happiness. You control your own destiny. You don't need anyone to define your worth. And when you reach that level of emotional independence, that's when everything starts to change. But let's be clear, this isn't about playing games. It's not about being petty or spiteful. Indifference isn't about shutting someone out of your life just to prove a point. It's not about manipulation. It's about becoming so emotionally strong, so rooted in who you are, that you no longer rely on anyone else to validate your worth. It's about freeing yourself from the emotional shackles that come with needing someone else's approval. And when you reach that point, when you've mastered this level of emotional independence, that's when they'll start to feel the loss. And when they do, they'll realize they can't just walk back into your life like they once could. They'll see that they've lost access to someone who has truly evolved beyond the person they once knew. This is the power of indifference. It's not about revenge. It's not about shutting people out of your life with bitterness. It's about becoming the best version of yourself, someone who doesn't need anyone else's approval to feel whole. And when you reach that point, the world around you changes. You stop waiting for anyone else to validate your worth, because you know you've already done it for yourself. You've become untouchable. And the best part? When they realize what they've lost, it won't even matter to you anymore. You'll be too focused on living your own life, growing, and becoming the best version of yourself. You'll have transformed, and they'll be left wondering why they ever let you go. You've probably felt it before, the gut-wrenching pain of heartbreak. It's a pain that seems to stretch endlessly, the kind of hurt that keeps you up at night, running through all the what-ifs and could-have-beens in your mind. It's like your heart is being pulled in two directions, caught between the past and the future, and you're stuck in this emotional whirlwind that seems impossible to escape. And in the midst of all that chaos, you might find yourself asking, why me? What did I do wrong? Will I ever feel normal again? It's tough. Heartbreak is one of the most painful experiences we can go through. But here's something most people don't realize. That pain? It's not something to avoid or wish away. What if I told you that this very pain, the one that feels like it might break you, is actually the key to your transformation? What if that heartbreak, that sense of betrayal, could be the fire that forges you into someone stronger, more resilient, and more in control than you ever imagined? This is where Stoicism comes in. The Stoic mindset isn't about pushing down your emotions or pretending everything is okay. It's about understanding that pain, like all things in life, is inevitable. And just like the ancient Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, they understood that it's not the pain itself that defines us, but how we respond to it, how we use it, how we transform it into something powerful. See, the Stoic principle teaches us that we can't control external events. We can't control the things that happen to us, the way people treat us, or the heartbreaks that come our way. But we can control how we respond to those events. And that's where the real power lies. Think about it. When life knocks you down, you can either stay down, wallowing in the pain, or you can get back up and decide that you won't let that pain define you. You can use it as fuel to become something better, stronger, and more unstoppable. You know how some people seem to be able to handle adversity with such grace and strength? The kind of people who go through difficult situations and come out on the other side, even more confident, even more powerful than they were before. That's not some magical trait they were born with. It's a mindset. It's the ability to take pain and turn it into power. It's the ability to look at a challenging situation and say, this won't break me. This will make me stronger. And that, my friend, is exactly what Stoicism teaches. Now don't get me wrong. It's not easy. Turning pain into power doesn't mean pretending you're fine when you're not. It means accepting the pain for what it is, understanding that it's part of the human experience, and using it to shape who you are. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's a cliche, but it's true. The only difference is that Stoicism doesn't just wait for pain to pass. It actively works with it. It turns adversity into something you can choose to learn from, rather than something that happens to you and knocks you down. Let's look at a real-world example. Have you ever gone through a breakup where you thought you would never be able to move on? Maybe you've spent weeks or even months replaying everything in your head, trying to figure out where it all went wrong, wishing you could go back and fix things. It's exhausting, isn't it? And what's even worse is the way we tend to tie our sense of self-worth to someone else's opinion of us. When a relationship ends, we often feel like we've lost part of ourselves, as if we aren't enough, as if we failed. But here's the thing, that's not true. Imagine, instead, you decide to take all that pain and frustration and channel it into something productive. You could choose to pour your energy into self-improvement, working on your physical health, learning new skills, diving into a new passion or hobby, or even just growing emotionally by by learning to master your own reactions. Think about the sense of empowerment you would feel by making the conscious choice to use this difficult time to build yourself up rather than let it tear you down. That's what Stoicism is all about. It's not about avoiding pain. It's about choosing to use that pain as a tool for growth. When you start embracing this Stoic mindset, you begin to realize that all the things you used to rely on, other people's approval, external validation, fleeting comforts, are not what define you. You are not defined by what happens to you. You are defined by how you choose to respond. And once you internalize that, the whole game changes. There's a famous Stoic quote by Epictetus. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Think about that for a second. In the context of heartbreak, this means that the fact that you were hurt doesn't make you weak or incomplete. What makes you strong is your ability to rise from the ashes, to learn from your pain, and to become a better version of yourself because of it. So instead of asking, "Why me?" you start asking, "What can I learn from this?" And in that shift, everything begins to change. Maybe you've heard of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who was also a Stoic philosopher. This guy faced war, political strife, personal loss, and yet he remained calm and centered through it all. How? By practicing what he preached, focusing only on what he could control. He didn't waste time stressing about things beyond his control. He didn't wallow in his emotions when life got tough. He accepted hardship as part of life and used it as an opportunity to practice virtue. Now, you don't have to become an emperor or a philosopher to adopt this mindset, but you can take inspiration from Marcus Aurelius and apply it to your life. When you're dealing with heartbreak, instead of letting it control you, you can choose to use it as an opportunity to practice resilience. You can choose to get stronger emotionally, to learn from the experience, and to grow. What you're doing is not just recovering, you're transforming. You're becoming unbreakable. There's something else that Stoicism teaches us, and it's powerful. Control over your emotions. We all have that internal emotional roller coaster, right? One moment you feel like you're on top of the world, and the next you're sinking into despair. That's because we often let our emotions control us instead of the other way around. Stoicism teaches that while we can't control our emotions, we can control how we react to them. Instead of letting your emotions dictate your life, you can choose to be the one in control. You can decide how you want to feel, how you want to respond, and how you want to move forward. Now, I know that this sounds like a lot of work, and honestly it is. It's not easy to turn pain into power, but it's also one of the most rewarding things you'll ever do. The pain you're feeling right now, the hurt from the past, can become your greatest source of strength. If you can learn to embrace it, understand it, and use it as a tool for growth, you'll come out the other side not only healed, but transformed. So next time you're hit with a tough moment, a setback, or a heartbreak, instead of retreating into despair, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use this to become better? Because when you start turning pain into power, you'll realize that no matter what life throws at you, you'll be able to handle it. You'll be stronger than you ever imagined. And that, my friend, is the real power of Stoicism. Have you ever met someone who seemed completely untouchable? I mean, they walked into a room and their presence was felt effortlessly. It wasn't that they were arrogant or loud, but there was just this sense of power that surrounded them. You couldn't quite put your finger on it, but you knew one thing. They weren't affected by anything or anyone. They had this quiet confidence, this emotional independence that made them seem unshakable. Maybe it's someone you've admired from afar, or maybe it's a version of yourself that you haven't quite unlocked yet. But what if I told you that you could be that person? What if you could become so emotionally strong, so resilient, so unbreakable, that nothing, and I mean nothing, could throw you off course again? That's what this part of the journey is all about, becoming untouchable. Now, before you think this is some kind of unattainable ideal, hear me out. I'm not talking about becoming cold or detached in the sense of pushing people away or hiding from emotions. I'm talking about a transformation that allows you to live life on your own terms, without being dependent on anyone else for validation or approval. It's about gaining so much emotional control that the opinions, actions, or behaviors of others no longer have the power to destabilize you. When you reach that level of emotional mastery, you become untouchable, not because you've built walls around yourself, but because you've created a foundation so strong that nothing can shake it. Think about it. How many times have you felt thrown off by someone's words or actions? Maybe it was an offhand comment from a friend, or a rejection from someone you cared about. Or maybe it was a situation where you were left waiting for something to happen, only to be let down. It's frustrating, right? It's like you invest all this energy into a situation or a relationship, only for it to fall apart, leaving you questioning your worth and your ability to trust your own judgment. That emotional roller coaster, it's exhausting. And here's the thing, it's optional. You don't have to stay on that ride. You don't have to let other people or circumstances determine how you feel. When you start to apply the Stoic principles we've talked about, accepting what you cannot change, controlling your reactions, and embracing emotional detachment, you start to see the world in a different way. Instead of reacting to everything, you start responding in a way that's aligned with your values, not with the whims of others. You become a rock in the middle of a storm, unaffected by the chaos around you. And the most incredible part of this transformation? People start noticing. They start seeing you in a completely new light. They start realizing that you're no longer available to be swayed by their opinions or their actions. You become untouchable. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. But what if I want to care? What if I want to let people in? That's the beauty of this transformation. It's not about turning off your emotions or pretending you don't care. It's about choosing to care only about what truly matters. It's about focusing on what you can control and letting go of the rest. When you stop giving away your emotional energy to things and people that don't deserve it, you have so much more left for yourself. And that's what makes you untouchable, because you're no longer dependent on external validation or approval. You've built a sense of inner strength that no one can take away from you. Let me tell you about someone I know who went through this transformation. A few years ago, he was in a relationship that consumed him. He was always waiting for that next text, that next call, that next sign that things were moving forward. He let his happiness depend on another person's actions. And every time that person didn't meet his expectations, it was like a punch to the gut. He felt lost. He felt powerless. And the worst part was, he didn't know how to get out of that cycle. One day, after another argument, he realized something. He was giving away his power. He was letting someone else's actions determine how he felt about himself. And that was the moment he decided to change. He stopped waiting for texts, stopped checking social media, stopped looking for signs that they were still invested. Instead, he put that energy into himself. He focused on his health, his career, his passions, things that were within his control. Over time, he became someone who no longer needed anyone else to feel complete. He was content with who he was. And when he reached that point, something incredible happened. He became untouchable. He didn't need validation from anyone. He didn't need someone else to approve of his choices or his life. He was strong and self-sufficient, and that inner strength made him attractive in a way he'd never experienced before. And guess what? That's when his ex started reaching out. But by then, he didn't need their approval. He was too busy living a full, fulfilling life, and the idea of going back into that emotional roller coaster seemed unnecessary. He had outgrown it. He had become someone untouchable. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, of course. It takes time. It takes effort. But every step you take toward emotional independence is a step toward becoming untouchable. It starts with setting boundaries with yourself and others. It starts with deciding that you won't let anyone else determine your worth. You become someone who isn't constantly looking for approval. Instead, you focus on your own goals, your own happiness, and your own growth. And the best part? You stop giving away your emotional energy to things and people that drain you. You stop chasing after people who aren't emotionally invested in you. You stop reacting to every little thing that happens and start responding with purpose and clarity. And when you do that, people will start to notice. They'll start to see that you're no longer available to be manipulated, to be controlled, or to be influenced by their whims. They'll see you as someone who stands on their own, someone who has their own life, their own power, and their own direction. And that's when the real magic happens. That's when you become untouchable. And here's the most amazing part of this transformation. It's not just about them, it's about you. It's about becoming someone who is so emotionally independent, so strong, so centered, that nothing, no person, no situation, no rejection can shake you. You are the architect of your own happiness. You are the master of your own emotions. And when you reach that point, nothing will ever feel impossible again. So ask yourself this: what would it feel like to become untouchable? What would it feel like to stand tall, no longer depending on anyone else for validation, but knowing your worth comes from within? That's the transformation waiting for you. It's time to stop looking outside yourself for the strength you need. It's time to tap into the power you already have and start building the life you've always deserved. You are untouchable. It's time to own it. You've been through it, right? The pain of heartbreak, the frustration of wondering why things didn't work out the way you planned, the emotional roller coaster of putting yourself out there, only to have it come crashing down. It feels like you're stuck in a cycle, doesn't it? The constant ups and downs, trying to figure out what went wrong, how to get them back, or how to move forward. And somewhere along the way, you might have started to doubt yourself, questioning your worth, your decisions, even your future. It's exhausting. It's soul-draining. And at some point, you might feel like you've had enough. You're ready for a change. You're ready to stop being at the mercy of circumstances and start living on your own terms. So here's the truth. You've already taken the first step. Just by showing up, by listening to this message, you've begun your journey towards something bigger, something more powerful than anything you thought possible. You've started to understand that the key to overcoming pain isn't about making it go away. It's about using it. It's about transforming your heartbreak into fuel for your personal growth. It's about shedding the old version of yourself that was waiting, hoping, and wondering if someone else was going to give you the strength you needed. And it's about stepping into a new version of yourself, the one who is untouchable, emotionally independent, and unshakable in the face of life's challenges. Let me ask you something. What would your life look like if you didn't need anyone's approval to feel good about yourself? What if you were so emotionally independent that no matter what happened in your life, you knew you would be okay? Imagine waking up every day feeling grounded, knowing that your worth comes from within and not from the approval or validation of others. Imagine standing in front of your mirror, looking at the person you see, and feeling pride. Not because of anything you've achieved for someone else, but because of the person you've become for you. That's what emotional mastery looks like. That's what it feels like to be truly untouchable. But here's the catch. It doesn't happen on its own. It's not something that just falls into your lap. The transformation you're seeking, the emotional freedom you desire, requires work. It requires dedication. It requires waking up every single day and choosing to be the best version of yourself, no matter what life throws your way. It's about becoming emotionally resilient and building a life where you don't need anyone's approval or validation to feel whole. And that, my friend, is exactly what Stoicism teaches us. How to build emotional strength, how to turn pain into power, and how to create a life of inner peace and confidence. Think back to the moments in your life when you felt weak or powerless, when you felt that sting of rejection or loss. It's painful, right? I'm not asking you to forget that pain or pretend it didn't hurt. What I'm asking is for you to shift your perspective. What if that pain wasn't something to avoid or hide from? What if it was something to embrace, to learn from, and to use as a stepping stone for personal growth? Imagine if every time life knocked you down, you used that moment to rise stronger than before. Imagine the kind of person you would become. This isn't some theoretical idea. This is practical, actionable change. This is about you taking control of your own life, your own happiness, and your own emotional well-being. It's about becoming a person who can face adversity head-on without flinching. And the beauty of it is, once you start walking this path, you'll realize something incredible. The past will no longer have power over you. The things that once hurt you, the people who once made you question your worth, they'll fade into the background. You'll stop giving them the emotional energy that once drained you. And in their place, you'll become someone who lives life on their own terms. Someone who is untouchable to the outside world's judgments, criticisms, and rejections. But here's the thing. You have to make the decision. You have to choose to take this power back into your hands. You have to choose to stop waiting for someone else to come and fix things for you. You have to make the decision to stop playing the emotional game of hoping someone will realize your worth. The truth is, your worth has never depended on anyone else. It's always been within you, just waiting to be unlocked. And now is the time to unlock it. I want you to take a moment and imagine what your life would look like if you started embracing this mindset today. Imagine feeling in control of your emotions, knowing that no matter what happens in your life, you are the one who decides how you react. Imagine waking up every morning with a sense of purpose, with a clear direction, knowing that you're building a life that only you can define. The relationships, the success, the happiness, all of it will fall into place because you're no longer waiting for it to happen. You're making it happen. That's the power of emotional freedom. That's the power of Stoicism. Now here's your call to action. I want you to commit to this journey. I want you to take a stand for yourself today. Stop waiting for someone else to give you the strength you need. It's time to become the strongest, most resilient version of yourself. Take control of your emotions. Stop letting external circumstances dictate your happiness. Focus on building a life that's yours and yours alone. Start applying the principles of Stoicism in your daily life. Start mastering your emotions, turning pain into power, and becoming untouchable. If you're ready to take this step, I want you to commit right now. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below saying, "I choose emotional freedom." By doing so, you're telling yourself and the world that you're ready to take control of your life and become someone who is unshakable, someone who is untouchable. This is just the beginning. The best part? You're not alone on this journey. We're all in this together, and I'm here to help you every step of the way. So let's start today. Let's transform your life, and let's make you untouchable.